Welcome all to A Tale of Two Cities and Rockport Strong, Planning for Resilience Pechakucha-ish presentation. It's a part of our 2020 EPIC-N free webinar and event series. My name is Marshall Curry, and I'm the EPIC-N program manager, and I'll be moderating our webinar today. Our presenters were planning to present at our conference this year in Indiana, and instead of are going above and beyond the call of duty due to the COVID-19 impact and cancellation of our in-person event. All of the series presenters hope that all of our recordings and resources that we're putting together can be used by other universities and community leaders to help catalyze programs or partnerships to help communities with their response and recovery to this pandemic. Anyone can attend the live taping of the rest of our webinars, or anyone can watch the recordings. And again, they're all going to be on our website page. If you need help finding them, please let us know. These participants in particular, we're planning to participate in a long-standing tradition that goes on at our annual conference. Each year, program managers do Pechakucha presentations to quickly summarize a project or a partnership in a visually amazing way. The Pechakucha style of presentation requires lots of practice, set timings, and only allows presenters 20 slides total and exactly 20 seconds for each slide using automatic transition. So it takes a lot of prep to get ready. Before today, I gave our presenters a bit of an easier assignment so they could spend more time supporting their communities and less time practicing exact 20-second transitions. That's why we're calling it a Pechakucha-ish style presentation. They will not have those same exact time requirements, but we are still hoping for a flashier, quick-hitting presentation than some of our other webinars presented in the series. Now I'd like to take a moment and introduce our organization and this programming. The Educational Partnerships for Innovation in Communities Network, or EPIC-N for short, is the nonprofit association of higher education institutions that adopt the award-winning EPIC model to facilitate high-impact, large-scale university, local government, and community partnerships. EPIC-N supports autonomous university programs across the globe that connect the human capital of universities with their local cities, counties, or community staff to improve the quality of life for all involved. All of EPIC-N's programming is presented by our member programs, the Ford Foundation, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Thank you to all these groups for their generous support. With that, let's get into it, and I'll introduce our first speaker. Daniel Fernandez has been a professor at CSUMB for 24 years. He teaches physics and classes in sustainability, systems thinking, infrastructure, and a capstone class for environmental studies students. In the past year, Dan received a grant from the Defense Department to study fog. He manages the CSUMB EPIC program since 2015, and you can see more of his statistics for his program here on this slide. You can also watch the recording of his presentation done earlier in the webinar series if you want to learn more about how he structures this program. One thing I'll note though is that his EPIC program normally does only one partner a year and runs a little smaller than other EPIC programs, but this year he is doing something different. And Dan, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Marshall. So here's my two city partners this year. I call it the Tale of Two Cities because I'm with two cities, City of San Juan Bautista and the City of Pacific Grove. And that's what I'll talk about regarding our partnerships this year. And over the past few years, this is just historical. I have had other city partners. I worked with Salinas for 2 years, and those are the number of classes and some of the fields of study that those classes engaged in, and as well as with the City of Seaside. And again, there's the number of classes and the different partnerships as a function of the discipline area. This year, though, I'm with two cities, and we've had about 6 classes partnering. Despite the COVID outbreak, we're still able to manage about that many, and I'm going to tell you about those. The two cities are San Juan Bautista, which you can see in the upper right there. CSUMB is lower left. There's a little arrow to it, and Pacific Grove, which is further lower left. Now, why did I do 2 cities? Well, and how did I do 2 cities? Well, I saw a former student who turned city staff member a couple years ago and told him about the program, and he got a city involved. Problem is they didn't have really that many projects or a lot of staff to help us or a budget that was that large, although they are providing us some support. So I found another opportunity through this email exchange a few months later. It ended up with San Juan Bautista, and the city manager there was the former associate director of in Salinas, my previous city partner. So I had an in with him, which was great. So he knew me already, he knew what we could do, and tied up our partnership for the second city from there. Here's a great example of one of the times that happened in one of my classes where PG and PG&E came together. PG is the City of Pacific Grove. On the right is my former student, who is the city staff member who represented us on the left. And he was having problems with trying to figure out who to contact in the Pacific Gas and Electric facility to find out who could help with wiring electric vehicle infrastructure. The guy on the right is somebody one of my students suggested who was in one of my other classes as a guest. He said, why don't we just call him and have him come in? The 2 of them together made things happen, and my students helped facilitate that. We also visited city council meetings for both cities. City of Pacific Grove below, there's the city council on the left, and on the right is a student who's just coming, one of my students who just came back from making a statement at the podium. Obviously very happy that she could do that. We also made visits to San Juan Bautista City Council, but this is a photo of us working with folks from the city on a plastic ban ordinance that we were planning to write a piece about for the student project there. On the far end is the city manager of San Juan Bautista helping organize the meeting. And this is a restaurant I actually got married at 30 years ago, coincidentally. And one of the projects that both cities were interested in was electric vehicle infrastructure. Well, I have an electric vehicle. I drove it to San Juan Bautista and was able to use their single charging station. So I was able to make use of the infrastructure that they are hoping to expand. Couldn't think of a better way to advertise that cause. Member of Pacific Grove city staff, Caleb, right there, is presenting at a hackathon challenge that the university had. And because he was our city partner, I was able to inform him about it, and he gave great advice and guidance to the students who were involved in that hackathon. So another example of how a partnership can lead to other opportunities with the city. And this is a rare event where I actually had 2 city partners both come to my class. My student Caleb's to the right. Don Reynolds is the city manager for City of San Juan Bautista. He's to the left. And one of my students, Gus, is sitting there too. He gave me permission. I could use this slide. But I thought it was great that I could get both cities in my class at the same time to help with this semester's project that we're currently working on. This past year with both cities, I've had, these are the classes that I mentioned, there were about 6 of them that participated. 2 of them are my own because I'm also a professor. So I'm teaching some of the classes, which makes my role in some ways easier because I know what's going on, at least a little bit, by being at the ground level. So a capstone class, which is a class for graduating students, a couple of geographical information systems classes as well, a class or 2 in business with some groups of students working in business, and currently my class on infrastructure systems where I'm working with both city partners. And I'll tell you about that project too. Here's some examples of projects students completed this past semester. This is bike planning routes for the City of Pacific Grove. Students came up with bike routes and they surveyed people and they sketched what the routes could be, and this is a map of what they did. As I mentioned, the students were also looking at electrical vehicles charging stations, and by having the person from PG&E come to my class, they were able to assess whether the infrastructure was sufficient to support the energy needs that the charging stations would require. And they found out it was, at the time anyway. They wanted to put more charging stations in, so other questions came up. But they put some planning into where these chargers could go at some locations in Pacific Grove. Another group in my class was helping certify businesses in the city of Pacific Grove to become green businesses. So they actually went to a number of businesses and helped them do the auditing and all that they needed to get their green business certifications. Another group worked with stormwater management in the city of Pacific Grove, looking at what areas they would recommend to have the city go and actually clean up. They also did a survey of local residents of the city to find out, are you doing anything for stormwater management, and to point them to resources that they could use to help manage stormwater retention on their own property in the city. And then, of course, the San Juan Bautista plastic ban ordinance that the city was trying to implement. And my students conducted a survey of businesses throughout the city. Had some interesting experiences with some of the businesses that weren't so excited about the idea, but most of them were. And these are the businesses that were surveyed within the city of San Juan Bautista. And here's a few GIS projects, Geographical Information Systems projects, that a different class worked on, whether it's identifying changes in trees in the neighborhood of Pacific Grove, or looking at the density of light poles in the city in terms of where they'd need more, or maybe could use fewer lights turned on. And then also looking at issues of people with special needs having access at locations in the city, and where different ramps would need to be built or are needed. Currently, this is maybe not so interesting just to look at numbers, but I'm having my students pick 5 cities across the state of California, and including my partner cities, and identify all sorts of categories of these cities that can be used for comparative purposes to look at the differences between the various cities, and to provide cities guidance on what some cities that might have best practices would be that they could consider consulting. And this has been a huge exercise, and I'm really amazed at the support that my city partners have given us. That's when they came to my class. And at the creativity some of my students are exhibiting in coming up with some of the numbers that are not necessarily that easy to find. Few lessons learned on partnering with 2 cities. Well, there's double the number of contracts and double the number of people you're going to work with. At least there's more. So there's more coordination. So there's some challenges. And there's a changing mindset. I have to think, oh, this is PG. Oh, this is San Juan Bautista. So they're very different cities. But it leads to opportunities. For one, it's an additional source of funding, because each city is providing a small budget, but something that I can work with. And there's more people to work with, so there's more ideas that actually get bounced around as well. So there can be both a challenge and opportunity to have more people. There's a greater diversity of projects, so students have greater choice in the things they can do. And the students get to see the differences and the distinctions and the similarities between 2 different cities at the same time period. Sometimes they're actually working on the same issues. They're going to city council meetings for both cities in some cases. So it's been really educational for both the students and for me to have this experience. And that's the end of my slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. I'm going to move us right along now and introduce our next presenter, Jeewasmi Thapa from Texas A&M, and she'll be presenting on Rockport Strong, Planning for Resilience. Jeewasmi Thapa works with underserved communities to plan for resilience as a program coordinator at the Texas Target Communities program. She serves as a liaison between community partners and the university. She designs community engagement workshops on visioning, goal setting, and needs assessments. She is responsible for developing and presenting planning studies and reports. She supervises interns and guides students to explore planning principles and best practices. She's a certified planner and serves as a planning ambassador for the American Planning Association. She received her Master of Urban Planning from the Texas A&M University, along with a certificate in environmental hazard management. She also has a bachelor's degree in architecture and has worked as an architect in her hometown of Kathmandu, Nepal. Her areas of interest include community engagement, not surprising, environmental planning, economic development, hazard mitigation, and disaster recovery. The Texas Target Communities program predates many of the other EPIC programs. They adopted the EPIC model around 2013 or 14, I think, and now employ it along with their other work they've been doing since 1993. As you mull over their program's positionality, I want to note 2 quick things. The first is that their program uses community comprehensive planning documents to scope and deliver the final projects and kind of combine all the courses into a final comprehensive planning document for the city. The second is that they create diverse advisory groups for each individual project that they identify. I'll leave it here and pass it to Jeewasmi to share about her work in partnership with Rockport.
All right, thank you, Marshall. Let me share. Looks right?
Looks good.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Marshall, for that introduction. Today, I will tell you the story of how we connected with different partners and worked to plan for resilience in a small town called Rockport, Texas. So just before I do that, another introduction for our program. The Texas Target Communities Program is a high-impact service learning and community outreach program. We partner with small communities across Texas to help them with needs that would otherwise go unmet. And like other programs in the network, we do so by working with faculty, students, researchers, and leveraging university resources. So now talking about our community partner, Rockport. Rockport is a beautiful coastal community of 10,000 people in Texas, and it is a popular destination for tourists and retirees. And it is famous for its natural beauty, birding, fishing, art, and culture. And in August 2017, this beautiful small town Rockport took a direct hit from Hurricane Harvey, causing a significant damage to its housing stock, businesses, and infrastructure, and Rockport lost 20% of its population, especially its workforce population. And all the multifamily housing was destroyed. Rockport lost the school, the city hall, and the county courthouse. And in the wake of recovery in 2018, the city contacted us with a desire to plan for future while resilience and recovery was still in mind. They wanted to update their long-range planning document, the Comprehensive Plan, which is a guidebook guiding growth and development in a community for the next 20 years. And a comprehensive plan has many components like land use, housing, transportation, economic development, community facilities. So to respond to it all, we identified and connected with 8 courses that would be working in the project. And the courses included courses in College of Architecture, Public Administration in our system school in Corpus Christi, a School of Law course in Fort Worth, which was also in our system, and a design studio in a completely another university called Texas Tech. And with that, we also partnered with Texas Sea Grant at Texas A&M and worked with 2 planning specialists who were on the ground near Rockport. And 2 of those specialists were instrumental in connecting us with the stakeholder in the community. Further, to connect with the community, we formed a planning task force. The planning task force has community members with diverse interests and expertise. And these task force members are expected to act as a conduit of information to and from the community, and they work very closely with our students and guide the development of the plan. So for an inclusive team, the task force should include the movers and shakers in the community, that is, those who have connection and resources. They should also include the moved and shaken, those who have limited resource and are marginalized, but still need to be heard. And a very good start to form this committee is someone from the middle, which is people who are trusted by both sides. So to equip this task force with needed leadership skill for the plan, we connected with Texas Rural Leadership Program, which is part of the extension program in Texas A&M. So this program provided workshops to the task force on community development, appreciated inquiry, and leadership skills. And in the picture, you can see task force doing their exercise on leadership. Now, we had the task force we were working with, but we wanted to connect to the larger community. So to do that, we organized public meetings, online engagement tools through story maps and survey, and we had around 200 participants who actively engaged in the process. To expand our engagement, we had students from public administration class who held brainstorming workshop sessions with high school students in Rockport to get feedback from the youth perspective. You know, what did they think about Rockport and what were their concerns for the future? Similarly, we also reached out to younger ones through our one of our very engaged elementary school teacher who was enthusiastic and had her class draw their drawings. So here are some beautiful drawings from our young artists. Both these groups shared the love for family-friendly Rockport community and wanted more activities catered to the age. The youths were concerned about lack of job opportunities and affordable activities in the community. And through all of our engagement, we had the community envision their future. Some of the things we heard from the community were the desire to grow responsibly in a resilient way by protecting natural resources. And they also wanted to focus on protecting the coastal charm while strengthening the art and culture. Further, the community set goals to support existing economic assets while also diversifying the economy to be resilient. They wanted to expand their affordable housing, mostly workforce housing, most of which was lost in Hurricane Harvey. And the community members also talked about an ongoing drainage issue. And to manage stormwater better, students from Texas Tech explored green infrastructure, low impact development strategies that focused on protecting wetlands and increasing pervious surface. And further, the city wanted to explore available legal tools. So the law capstone class researched on mechanisms to mitigate flood impacts. They looked into land use tools and regulations that can help mitigate flood impacts. And, you know, we worked a lot with classes, but we also got a chance to connect with experts. So through the American Planning Association's Community Planning Assistance Team, we worked with a multidisciplinary team of expert planning professionals who provided recommendations on the recovery of Austin Street in Rockport downtown. And this was a program that Rockport had applied to, and luckily they were there at the same time we were there, and we got a chance to work together. And further, connecting with researchers here in Texas A&M, we utilized a tool called the Plan Integration for Resilience Scorecard, which looked at 5 existing plans in the community to help coordinate planning efforts and integrate mitigation and recovery efforts into the plan. So we were able to pull policies from hazard mitigation plan, from the floodplain management plan, and from the long-term recovery plan, as well as master plan for the downtown. And the final product, the City of Rockport's comprehensive plan, which will be the guiding document for the community for the next 20 years, is now open for public comments and hopefully will be adopted soon by the City Council. And it is a product of integrated impact, which brings research and learning to engagement and service. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeewasmi. I really appreciate it. And Dan, thank you so much for your presentation. Let's give both our presenters a break so they can get a drink of water by allowing all of our participants to unmute their video and their microphone if they want, and give a round of applause, or you can use the reaction buttons in your Zoom chat to sound off for your support for all the work that Dan and G put into their presentations. I'll stop my share so we can all see everybody's, oh, no one's unmuted, but anyway, round of applause. Good job, everybody. And and then I'm gonna wrap us up here. Thank you both again. Just a couple of other little notes for our participants. Please do give us feedback on the presentation using the link provided. I'll be sending it to you in an email. That feedback is really crucial for us, especially as we're looking to future years for this webinar series. Do share it to social media of your appreciation to Dan and G. You'll be emailed a link in the next week or so with the recording of the session, and do check out the list of events that are upcoming on our event page. We'll have some resources to share along with the slide deck. We're putting those together for you. They'll be on this page when you get there. And this is again part of the 2020 EPICN free webinar series. Please invite others to join. And with that, I pressed the wrong button and want to get us into the question and answer period. So if you are having a question for one of our presenters, now's the time to go ahead and unmute. I'll eventually stop sharing my screen so you can see one another, and feel free to ask your questions and introduce yourself. Thank you so much. Anyone want to go first?
Hi, this is Laura Block, and I'm curious about the work in Texas. How much did your community partners have to pay, and where do they get the funding from? Were there resilience funding or?
Yeah, so usually for a comprehensive plan, we budget our projects from 30 to 40,000, depending on the scope and the scale and the travel distance. For Rockport, we had $10,000 grant funding from our Texas Rural Leadership Program, and they had paid about 20,000.
See me taking notes there. And just I want to be clear, so did you do the complete comprehensive community plan, or was just part of it?
We did the whole thing.
Oh, so they got a lot of bang for their buck.
Yeah, we had different classes, different partners looking into different things, but we were the ones who took it from the start to the finish line, and yeah, we finished the whole comprehensive plan.
Other questions from the group? Going once or twice?
Okay, I just talked and I had it unmuted. Thank you, Marshall. Oh, I'm curious just about, you know, like other like lessons learned or next steps. And also I'm really curious about past partners and working with them again, like the kinds of things where, because we often hear about they get information, they get reports, and then they need some time to process. And so I'm wondering, you know, for both you and Dan, how can you give examples of how that happened?
Yeah, Dan, I'm going to go first. Answering back to some of the lessons learned, especially in this you know, project with Rockport, one of the biggest thing was, I think, communication, finding the right partners to work with. So there was a whole lot of coordination. So, you know, when we select a community, we are very careful at looking at who are the people who are coming in. Do we have a champion for the project? Someone who can have, you know, organize and then push this forward. So getting back to the lesson with lots of engagement and coordination, we really needed that strong person in the community. So in this case, it was the city planner, you know, who completely handled and coordinated so much of partners coming in. That was a whole lot of work for her while they were still recovering. But having that person early on and making sure that's in place really helped us go forward with this project. And getting back to your question on how we get back to community. So since our projects are more than a year, almost 18 months, because it takes time to really do this kind of project. So we kind of build relation with the community through different levels. One with the city staff, but also with the task force. And as you can see, like our engagement process is pretty robust. So we had 10 meetings in the community, and we're constantly going, even when Rockport was a little far from here. But so with time, we do build that relationship, and we actually go back and ask them. So that's something we've been meaning to do. So we're trying to go back to our communities we've worked with and connect with them to see where they're at. And one good example of like successfully continuing our relationship with the community was a community we worked in 2014. We completed a project in a small town called Nolanville, Texas, where we did another comprehensive plan. And after 5 years of doing that, well, less than 5 years, I would say, last year they came back to us wanting to do an update because they had completed around 90% of the comprehensive plan. So they wanted an update. So we work with communities that come back. And another example, LaGrange, we have a continuing relationship. We've done a number of projects. We had one plan in 1993 or 95, the comprehensive plan. And then in 2015, we did a housing study. And then again in 2017, we did a comp plan.
Yeah, once programs get rolling, they can definitely circle back around to help with those communities with those projects that may or may not have gotten any work done since the last time. So good example of that. Dan, you had to answer that question too, I think.
Yeah, Laura, could you just ask the question again just to make sure I remember it?
Oh yeah, I'm just curious about when you work with communities and cities and then you move on to new partners, when they've had time to process and they want to take the next step on some things or they need help with other issues, just examples of that.
Okay.
The continuing
okay.
relationship, sort of being that anchor institution.
Right. You know, I think that's always a work in progress because there'll always be city partners that come back for random reasons but related to something that we have worked on with them before. I know I've talked to folks from the city of Salinas saying, hey, you know, or other folks have had some association with the city saying, hey, you know, maybe we could partner with you again. So, you know, we can do repeat partnerships and continue with maybe related or even slightly different activities, but they already know that we're there in the community and that we're doing that. CSUMB also has a really strong service learning, so we're already doing that in communities, not necessarily with city governments, and that's not my program, it's our service learning program that's doing that, and that's great. And my program is doing it in its own way too. People, just the other, right before, I call it BC right now, before COVID, there was a presentation that I was at, and somebody from a local developer came and spoke and was talking about work that my students did. He didn't know I was there. He didn't even know my program existed necessarily. He didn't know it was called the Sustainable City or program. He just said, oh, CSUMB students helped with the design of the community here and they provide critical input. And I went up to him afterwards and I told him, you know, that was my program. My students who did that, I loved hearing that. And he wrote me a little letter, a little note supporting that. So it comes up in kind of little random ways. And that wasn't the city. That was somebody who worked in this, you know, with the city who brought that up. But there's ways it just kind of creeps in. And then the city's, you know, getting some indirect benefit or something related to work they've done in the past.
Great, thank you both. Julie opened up her video cameras. Do you have a question for them? I think you're on mute.
No, I really appreciate the presentations, and we're new, so I'm at Eastern Oregon University. I forgot to say that. We just started our program here in January, and so we're off to a good start given the current conditions. Some really interesting things have actually come out of that, but I do appreciate hearing about both of the programs that you both described, and I'm particularly curious right now about the community, the comprehensive community planning, because I was thinking about that for the future around here, but haven't gotten started on it.
I'll pose a question to follow up on that, Julie, because I kind of have the same question. Is like, how, for Gia and Dan, like, how would you suggest, or what would your recommendations be to some of these new programs who are attending the call today to get started? Like year one, what would kind of be your top two recommendations, or I know it's hard to summarize it down to two, but what would be your recommendations for them?
For someone starting off, I would think first would be building relationship. I'd go back to that again, finding faculty and people in the university system who are willing to partner or work together. And really, you know, reaching out to even old students who would possibly be in a position where they could point to, well, yeah, I'm working in a city, this, and we could definitely do some help. That could be a good start. You know, I had the advantage of coming in a program that was already well established, and we don't really have problem of, you know, having to find people who want to work with us yet, but I would think that might be a good start.
I couldn't agree more. It's finding champions on both sides, both on the campus side and on the community partner side. I think, I mean, I was the champion on the campus side, so that was, for me, that was easy because I could do it. As a professor, I could just teach it and then start whatever program I could. But if I didn't have somebody on the city side who wanted this and who thought it was worthwhile, I would have just been spinning my wheels. Had to find that critical key person who would push it and say, hey, this is great. We ought to do something with these folks, even if it's small. And I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. You can do it small. You can start small. Maybe it'll grow. Maybe it'll stay small too, and that's okay also. As long, you know, it's better to do it than to not do it.
Thanks, Dan. Next up, or Julie, do you have a follow-up? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Dan, do the students generally pick those projects? All of the different projects that you described, are those student-led and student initiated, or is it the city partner who's curious about those?
I love that question because in my capstone class, what I do, they have one semester to do a whole project for their graduation. And their project is whatever partner city, it's with whatever partner city we're doing. So it's a class that kind of broke out of the model. It was designed around this program, but we needed it. And that's a great example that I can pick here, because what I do is I tell the students, here's the general areas the city would like some input in, come up with a project related to it. Some of the students love it. They're like, this is great. We can decide what we want to do and come up with ideas. Other ones are like, will you just tell us what to do? And, you know, it's too hard to figure it out. And so I get a little bit of both. And so my answer is the city basically gives me general ideas and areas where they would like some help. And then I usually open it up to the students and try to make it so that it's something that they can make their own to some extent. In some cases, the city needs something very specific. I know in the GIS classes, and the students will do a GIS project that is exactly what the city wants, and it's just that one piece. The ones I do are typically a little bit more free-flowing. So it varies a bit, but I try to have some level of give and take in terms of giving the students a chance to take some ownership of what they're going to do.
Yeah, so you're seeing some head nodding from both me and G as well, that a lot of our programs will kind of have both. But a lot of the times it's community identified to start, and sometimes it's more specific and more vague. And Dan's a really good case story for a lot of our programs and what they're facing.
I can add a little bit on that about our program. So we really focus on community-based and community-focused projects. So our main focus are usually communities need and whatever they've identified, and we drive the project by that community input. But still, there are some projects that are more like exploratory. You know, they might just say they want to see some sort of ideas to revitalize their downtown, and then the students can explore ideas. So that can lead to other conversations. So it can be a combination of both.
Great. And back to the last question, I'm going to open the floor up to Monica. She had a question about one of the two champions both of you recommended to go build relationship with. How do you, and so I'll hand it over to her to ask her question.
Hi, everyone. So I'm the Campus Sustainability Coordinator at Cal Poly Pomona University. And so I wanted to find out how you find faculty partners, like the right faculty partner for example, a business course with GIS and connecting all of those folks to work on projects. I feel like I have a lot of faculty champions, I call them, at our campus, but it's hard for me to figure out who's necessarily already working with city partners. And I want to try to connect those with other faculty partners that I already know of that might be able to assist them. So it's more of like a coordinating issue that I'm having.
So is the question, how do you contact them, or how do you find what faculty are doing?
Yes, so I guess I wanted to find out, are you just finding, like meeting a faculty member, or do you already know that they're working on this particular area before you reach out to them to work on a proposal, for example?
Yeah, we try to, I would say sometimes the faculty reach out to us with a desire to work on a community, and with wanting a desire to have a real world experience for their class. But if that's not the case, we know someone works in that field and that's what our projects need. We kind of contact them and see there's an opportunity. Can we work together? Is there a room in your course that you can put the project in your syllabus? And then we kind of plan from that, almost acting like matchmakers, trying to see what does the communities need and what are the courses or resources available. And sometimes we already know the people, and sometimes new connections need to be made. At this time, we do have, like, once you start working with one course, like, it usually continues for the other year too. They come back saying, hey, that went great. Can we work again? So it's usually the first connection, and then, working with them with their syllabus. And we kind of tell the community too, since we're in a semester system, university system, so we'll work through with the syllabus and vice versa.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I just wanted to hear from Dan as well on that question, but yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, first of all, Monica, it's thrilling. It's always thrilling to hear another CSU, another sister campus. So welcome aboard. I'm really glad. And secondly, I agree with Jeewasmi that it's about networking. It really is about networking. And the way I see it, to have too many uncertain folks that are new to it might be a little challenging. So I think it's good to start with the ones you know, and then continue networking. You'll gradually meet others who will fit. I'm a faculty member, so I'm always talking to other faculty members in faculty meetings and other things. They hear about this all the time. So people hear, and then they'll start slowly coming out of the woodwork, and that's actually better for me, because if 10 new folks came who I didn't really work with before, it would be a little bit much. But if it's just one or two, that's great. I can kind of follow them along and check with them. They check with me, and we go back and forth. And so it's like a gradually evolving, growing network rather than a revolution of, dozens of new faculty coming in, which would be a whole program, which I wouldn't be able to manage. So for me, it's a case of gradually networking and growing. And I have had faculty members who I probably wouldn't want to work with again on this. They just, I think, didn't really give me what I wanted in the end. And I learned, it's like, okay, I'm not going to work with that person again on this. And that can happen. That's part of it. That's part of it. Not every partnership, even within the campus, is going to be perfect. And but hopefully most of them will. And then you're gradually growing. And that's just how any program works, I think.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Can I add something just from seeing a perspective? I'm with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and championing, trying to get EPIC programs up and running in California, and working with the Chancellor's office to try and sort of provide assistance to the campuses. I found some of the things that they did was coming in and inviting faculty to a presentation, like a 1 or 2 hour presentation on EPIC, and providing examples, because that gets them excited to perhaps want to be involved in the starting phases of a program. And also it's helpful to find a faculty champion who can, be the champion with you on this venture. So those are a couple of like lessons learned or that I've noticed.
Agreed. Yeah, great,
Yeah.
great suggestions, Laura. Yeah.
Yeah, and those, and I'll end, Monica, with just a reminder or tip that we, EPICN and myself, are available to help any of our programs talk about reaching out and coordinating all the faculty working with their projects, from programs that are just starting to programs that are at Jeewasmi stage, where they're very well known in their university systems across multiple schools and also in the communities. We have kind of thoughts and resources for all those different stages. So feel free to, as you continue strategizing and working on your campus, feel free to reach out and we can kind of send you the next step towards where you want to go, whatever that step might be. We've talked with a lot of different universities across the world, and so we have some general ideas of ways to make your life easier, whichever direction you want to go. I'm going to wrap this up real quick. I'll leave the recording on, or not the recording, the webinar room open. So if you have any last questions, you can still ask it, but I'm just going to do a quick wrap up of our session. Thank you for attending. You'll find the slides from today, again, shared with you both on the event page and also on our member comments for those of you who use the member comments. The rest of our event series you can find on our events page, and this concludes A Tale of Two Cities and Rockport Strong, Planning for Resilience, a Pechakucha-ish presentation with Daniel Fernandez and Jeewasmi Thapa. See you all on the next recording, or the next webinar.